My wife stood in the doorway of our bedroom, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floor like a countdown timer to the end of everything I thought we had. "If you're so smart, Ethan," she said, her voice dripping with contempt, "then pay your own bills." The words hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. Behind her, the city lights of downtown Seattle glowed through our penthouse windows, 50 stories of success that suddenly felt like 50 stories of lies. My name is Ethan Morrison, and that night, I walked out of my marriage with nothing but a backpack and a secret my wife didn't know I was keeping. A month later, when Victoria called me in a panic asking why the company's entire database had gone offline, my response left her absolutely speechless. But to understand how I destroyed a multi-million-dollar company without laying a finger on it, you need to understand how I built it in the first place. If you're watching this and you've ever felt undervalued, underestimated, or completely invisible in your own relationship, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment below telling me if you've ever been in a situation where someone took credit for your work. And smash that like button, because this story is about to take some turns you won't see coming. 5 years ago, I was a senior software architect at TechCore Solutions, pulling in a decent six-figure salary designing database systems for Fortune 500 companies. Victoria Hartwell was the new VP of Business Development, brought in from a competitor to help expand our client base. She was brilliant, no question about that, sharp as a razor, with this way of reading a room that made investors open their wallets and competitors nervous. We met during a company retreat in Montana. I was giving a presentation on cloud infrastructure security, probably the most boring topic imaginable for a weekend getaway. But Victoria sat in the front row asking questions that actually made sense. Technical questions, not the usual executive nonsense about synergy and paradigm shifts. After my presentation, she found me at the lodge bar. "That was fascinating," she said, sliding onto the stool next to mine. "The way you explained quantum encryption made it sound almost poetic." I laughed, stirring my whiskey. Most people's eyes glaze over after about 30 seconds. "I'm not most people, Ethan." And she wasn't. Victoria had this energy that filled whatever room she walked into. She'd graduated from Stanford Business School, had connections in every major tech hub, and could close deals that other executives couldn't even get meetings for. When she asked me to collaborate on a pitch for a major client, I said yes without hesitation. That collaboration turned into late nights at the office, which turned into dinners discussing everything from machine learning to our favorite books. 3 months later, we were dating. 6 months after that, I proposed on the roof of our office building, the entire city spread out below us like a circuit board of possibilities. The wedding was featured in Seattle Business Monthly. Victoria looked stunning in her Vera Wang gown, and I felt like the luckiest man alive. For our honeymoon, we went to Bali, spent 2 weeks disconnected from work, planning our future. She wanted to start her own company. I wanted to support her dreams. Looking back, I can pinpoint the exact moment things started changing. It was about 8 months after we got married. Victoria came home one evening, her eyes bright with excitement. "Ethan, I've been thinking, what if we started our own company? You and me building something from the ground up." I set down the coding project I'd been working on. "What kind of company?" "Tech consulting, but specialized. We target mid-sized companies that are struggling with their digital infrastructure. You build the systems, I bring in the clients. We split everything 50-50. The idea was sound. I had the technical expertise. She had the business connections. Together, we could create something real. We launched Hartwell Solutions 6 months later. Victoria insisted on using her last name for the brand recognition. Said her network would respond better to her family name than Morrison. Made sense at the time. I was too focused on the technical side to care much about branding. I built everything from scratch. The entire database architecture, the security protocols, the client management systems, the automated reporting tools. Worked 16-hour days for months, surviving on coffee and the belief that we were building our future together. Victoria handled the business side, bringing in clients with that charm and confidence she had. Within a year, we had 12 major contracts. Within 2 years, we were pulling in $8 million in annual revenue. But somewhere in that success, something shifted. Victoria started introducing me as her technical consultant at client meetings instead of her co-founder. Started taking calls in other rooms, behind closed doors. Started coming home later and later, always with explanations about difficult clients or networking events. The first real crack appeared about 3 years in. We were at a tech industry gala, the kind of event where people in expensive suits pretend they're changing the world while drinking champagne that costs more than most people's monthly rent. A journalist from TechCrunch approached us, wanted to do a feature on Hartwell Solutions and how Victoria had built such a successful company so quickly. Built? I said, smiling. We built it together. I designed all the systems architecture. The journalist looked confused, glancing between Victoria and me. Victoria laughed, that charming dismissive laugh she used when someone said something awkward at a party. Ethan's being modest. He's an excellent programmer, very reliable. But the strategic vision, the business development, that's what really drives our success. The journalist nodded, already focusing his attention back on Victoria. The strategic vision. Like the thousands of lines of code I'd written, the security systems I'd designed, the database architecture that made everything possible, none of that was strategic vision. That was just technical work, just programming, just being reliable. I didn't say anything that night. Drove home in silence while Victoria scrolled through her phone, probably reading the preliminary notes the journalist had sent her. But something hardened in my chest, something that started paying closer attention. Over the next year, the pattern became clearer. Victoria introduced me as her employee at industry events, listed herself as sole founder in company materials, started paying herself twice what she paid me, justified it by saying she brought in all the revenue. Your salary is very generous for a technical employee, she said once when I questioned the disparity. Most programmers would kill for what you're making. I built the systems that made her success possible, designed the architecture that let us scale from 12 clients to 40, created the automated processes that let us operate with a skeleton crew and massive profit margins. But to Victoria, I was just the guy who typed code into a computer. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening in October. I'd been working on a major system upgrade, pulling 70-hour weeks to implement new security protocols required by one of our biggest clients. Hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night in weeks. Victoria walked into my home office where I was debugging a critical authentication module. Ethan, I need you to handle something. I didn't look up from my screen. Kind of in the middle of something here, Vic. This security patch needs to deploy by Friday or we lose the contract. I'm sure you can multitask, she said, her tone suggesting I was being difficult. The bathroom sink is leaking again. Can you call a plumber? I stopped typing and turned to face her. You want me to stop working on a system that's generating $2 million in annual revenue to call a plumber? Don't be dramatic. It'll take 5 minutes. Victoria, I'm literally preventing a massive security breach right now. Can't you call the plumber? Her face went cold. I'm running a company, Ethan. I don't have time for household maintenance. That's what you're here for. The words hit like a slap. That's what you're here for. Not we're running a company. Not our company. Her company. And I was just here for household maintenance. What I'm here for, I said slowly, standing up from my desk, is building the technical infrastructure that makes your company possible. Victoria laughed, that same dismissive sound she'd made at the gala. Please, you write code, Ethan. I build relationships. I close deals. I'm the reason we have clients. You're just the back-end support. Just the back-end support. The back-end support that had designed every single system. The back-end support that worked 70-hour weeks while she attended networking lunches. The back-end support that made her entire business model possible. You know what? I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. You're right. I'm just a programmer. Just technical staff. So maybe I should start acting like it. What's that supposed to mean? It means maybe I should work normal hours. Maybe I shouldn't spend my evenings and weekends maintaining systems for your company. Maybe I should treat this like the employee-employer relationship you clearly think it is. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Don't threaten me, Ethan. Everything you've built here is company property. Legally, I own all of it. She was right, of course. When we'd set up the business structure, Victoria had insisted on retaining majority ownership, said it made the paperwork cleaner. I'd agreed because I trusted her, because we were married, because I thought we were partners. I'm not threatening you, I said. I'm just clarifying my role. You're the CEO. I'm the employee. So from now on, I'll work like an employee. I sat back down and returned to my code, dismissing her. Victoria stood there for a moment, probably not used to being dismissed in her own home. Then she left, her heels clicking away down the hallway. That was the beginning of the end, but neither of us knew it yet. Over the next 3 months, I worked exactly 40 hours a week. No more late nights, no more weekend emergency fixes. When systems had issues outside business hours, I let them wait until morning. Victoria's frustration grew exponentially. Ethan, the client portal is down. Why aren't you fixing it? It's 7 p.m. on a Saturday, Victoria. I'm off the clock. This is our company. No, it's your company. You've made that very clear, and employees get to log off. The arguments became more frequent and more vicious. Victoria accused me of sabotaging her business. I pointed out I was doing exactly what she'd asked, treating myself like an employee instead of a partner. The resentment built like pressure in a sealed container, waiting for the moment it would explode. That moment came in December, 3 days before Christmas. Victoria had just closed a major deal with a pharmaceutical company, a 3-year contract worth $12 million. She came home that evening with champagne and that triumphant energy she always had after landing a big client. "We need to celebrate," she announced, popping the cork in our kitchen. "Congratulations," I said, genuinely meaning it despite everything. "That's huge." "It is," she agreed, pouring 2 glasses. "This puts us in a whole new category. We're playing with the big boys now." She handed me a glass, and for a moment, it felt like old times. Like we were still partners, still building something together. Then she said, "I'm going to need you to really step up your game, Ethan. This client is going to require some serious technical work." "I'm already working 40 hours a week," I said carefully. "That's not going to cut it. I need you putting in 60, 70 hours minimum. This client is too important." "Then hire another developer." Victoria set down her glass, her expression hardening. "Why would I hire another developer when I already have one?" "Because I'm not interested in working 70-hour weeks anymore." "Not interested?" Her voice rose. "Ethan, this is our livelihood. This is what pays for this penthouse, for your car, for everything you have." "No," I corrected. "This is what pays for your penthouse, your car, your lifestyle. You've made it very clear this is your company. I'm just an employee, remember? And employees work reasonable hours." Victoria's face flushed red. "You're unbelievable. After everything I've done for you, after giving you a job when you could have been just another corporate drone, this is how you repay me?" "Giving me a job?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Victoria, I built this company from the ground up. Every system, every protocol, every piece of infrastructure that makes your business model possible, I created that. You didn't give me a job. We were supposed to be partners." "Partners?" She laughed. "Ethan, be realistic. What do you bring to this partnership? You write code. That's it. I'm the one with the vision, the connections, the business acumen. You're a good programmer, but that's all you are." The words hung there, brutal and final. "That's all you are." "You really believe that?" I said quietly. "Of course I believe it. It's the truth." I walked to our bedroom, pulled a backpack from the closet, and started packing. Victoria followed me, her confusion evident. "What are you doing?" "What does it look like? I'm leaving." "Don't be ridiculous. Where are you going to go?" I stuffed clothes into the backpack without looking at her. "Anywhere but here." "Ethan, stop being dramatic. Put your things away and let's discuss this like adults." "There's nothing to discuss. You've made your position clear. This is your company. I'm just a programmer, so I'm done." Victoria's expression shifted from confusion to anger. "If you walk out that door, don't expect to come crawling back. I won't tolerate this kind of immature behavior." I zipped up the backpack and turned to face her. "I'm not planning on coming back." "Fine," she snapped. "But you should know that everything you've built here belongs to the company. Legally, I own all of it. The code, the systems, everything. You walk away with nothing." "I'm aware," I said calmly. "Good luck maintaining it without me." Her face went pale as the implications registered. "You wouldn't dare sabotage the systems." "I don't need to sabotage anything, Victoria. I just won't be around to maintain them. And here's something you might not have considered in your business acumen." I shouldered my backpack and walked toward the door. "Every system I built has a single point of failure: me." I walked out of that penthouse with nothing but a backpack, my laptop, and a secret Victoria didn't know I had. For the past 6 months, anticipating something like this might happen, I'd been documenting everything. Every time Victoria took credit for my work, every time she introduced me as just a programmer, every email where she discussed the systems I'd built as if she'd designed them herself. But more importantly, I'd been preparing for exactly this scenario. Every major system I'd built for Hartwell Solutions had what I called a dependency architecture. Nothing was deliberately sabotaged, nothing was broken. But everything was deeply, intricately connected to systems that required specific knowledge to maintain, knowledge that existed only in my head and in documentation I'd never shared. I checked into a cheap hotel that night, the kind of place that charged by the week and didn't ask questions. The room smelled like cigarette smoke and regret, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. My phone buzzed with texts from Victoria. First apologetic, then angry, then threatening. I turned it off and opened my laptop. The first week, I just existed. Ate cheap takeout, slept without setting alarms, walked around the city without any destination. Let my mind decompress from years of constant pressure. Victoria's texts continued, escalating in urgency. Day 3. Ethan, we need to talk about this rationally. Day 5. You're being incredibly selfish. Day 7. This is affecting the business. You need to come back and fix what you broke. I hadn't broken anything. That was the beautiful part. Every system was functioning exactly as designed. But systems require maintenance, require someone who understands the architecture to handle updates, to address security patches, to optimize performance as the company grew. Victoria thought she could just hire another developer to replace me. She had no idea how wrong she was. 3 weeks after I left, I was sitting in a coffee shop when I saw the first sign things were falling apart. TechCrunch ran a small article about Hartwell Solutions losing a major client due to technical issues. The pharmaceutical company had pulled their contract after experiencing repeated system outages during their onboarding process. I knew exactly what had happened. The client portal I'd built required specific configuration for enterprise-level access, configuration that wasn't documented anywhere except in my personal notes. Without that knowledge, the system would appear to work, but would fail under the load of a major client's data requirements. Victoria would have brought in contractors, probably paying premium rates for emergency support. But without understanding the underlying architecture, they'd be putting band-aids on symptoms without addressing the fundamental issue. My phone rang at 2 a.m., 4 weeks after I'd left. I'd blocked Victoria's number, but this call came from the company line. I answered, curious. Ethan? Victoria's voice was strained, exhausted. The entire database is offline. Everything. We can't access any client data, can't process any requests. The contractors I hired say they can't figure out what's wrong. That's unfortunate, I said, keeping my voice neutral. I need you to fix this. Name your price. Whatever you want, I'll pay it. I don't work for Hartwell Solutions anymore, Victoria. Remember? I'm just a programmer. That's all I am. Ethan, please. I'll admit I was wrong. I'll give you equity, make you an equal partner, whatever you want. Just fix the systems. I let the silence stretch out, imagining Victoria in her penthouse office, surrounded by useless contractors and failing systems, finally understanding exactly how much she'd depended on the technical support she'd dismissed so casually. The systems aren't broken, Victoria. They're just complex. They require someone who understands the architecture intimately, someone who designed them with specific knowledge and specific dependencies. What are you saying? Her voice was rising toward panic. I'm saying you were right. You own everything. The code, the systems, all of it. It's all yours. Good luck figuring out how it works. You bastard. You deliberately designed it so only you could maintain it. No, I corrected. I designed it as efficiently as possible for a small company with limited technical staff. The problem isn't the design. The problem is you never bothered to understand what I actually did beyond writing code. How much? Victoria asked, desperation clear in her voice. How much do you want to come back and fix this? I don't want your money, Victoria. I don't want anything from you. Then what do you want? I thought about that question, about 5 years of my work being dismissed, about being called just a programmer while I built an empire, about being treated like hired help in the company I'd created. I want you to understand, I said finally, that technical expertise isn't just back-end support. It's not just reliable programming. It's the foundation everything else is built on. Without that foundation, your business acumen and your connections don't mean anything. Ethan, I understand now. I was wrong. I'm admitting it. Just please, fix the systems. The systems aren't broken, I repeated. They're just lonely. They miss the person who understood them. I hung up. Victoria called back immediately. I let it go to voicemail. She called 15 more times that night. I turned off my phone and went back to sleep. The next morning I woke up to discover Victoria had hired a law firm to threaten me with breach of contract. The letter was delivered to my hotel room by a very uncomfortable courier. I read it carefully, then called my own attorney, Jessica Park, someone I'd quietly retained 2 weeks after leaving. They're claiming you deliberately sabotaged the systems, Jessica said after reviewing the letter. Can they prove that? They can't prove it because it's not true. Every system is functioning exactly as designed. The only thing that's changed is I'm not there to maintain them. So what's your plan here, Ethan? My plan, I said, is to let Victoria learn exactly what I was worth. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched from a distance as Hartwell Solutions imploded. 3 more major clients canceled their contracts due to technical issues. The pharmaceutical company went public with complaints about data security concerns. TechCrunch ran a larger article questioning the company's technical infrastructure. Victoria hired 6 different contractors, paying premium emergency rates, trying to reverse engineer systems I'd spent years building. None of them could do it. Not because the systems were deliberately obscure, but because they were deeply integrated, built with specific knowledge of the business requirements, optimized in ways that required understanding both the code and the company's operational needs. Then came the call I'd been expecting. Not from Victoria this time, but from one of the board members, Richard Sutton, a venture capitalist who'd invested heavily in Hartwell Solutions based on Victoria's pitch about scalable infrastructure. "Mr. Morrison," Richard said when I answered, "I think we need to have a conversation." We met at an upscale restaurant downtown, the kind of place where the menu doesn't have prices. Richard was a man in his 60s, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, with the calm demeanor of someone who'd seen every business disaster imaginable. "I've done my research," Richard said after we ordered. Victoria claimed she built Hartwell Solutions from the ground up, but after talking to some people reviewing some documents, I'm starting to think that wasn't exactly accurate. "No," I agreed. "It wasn't." "Want to tell me the real story?" I did. Spent an hour laying out exactly how Hartwell Solutions had been built, the systems I'd designed, the architecture that made everything possible, showed him documentation I'd kept, emails where Victoria had taken credit for technical achievements, contracts I'd negotiated with vendors for server infrastructure. Richard listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on his phone. "So Victoria's entire business model depends on technical infrastructure she doesn't understand and can't maintain without you," he summarized when I finished. "That about covers it." "And you're willing to let the company fail rather than help her?" "I'm willing to let her face the consequences of treating her technical co-founder like a disposable employee," I corrected. "There's a difference." Richard smiled. "I like you, Ethan. You've got principles. That's rare in this industry." "Thanks, I think. Here's my situation. I've got $3 million invested in Hartwell Solutions. If the company fails, I lose all of it. Victoria's been promising me she can fix the technical issues, but I don't believe her anymore." He leaned forward. "What would it take for you to rebuild those systems? Not for Victoria, for a new company. Same client base, same business model, but with proper leadership structure." I sat back, considering. "What exactly are you proposing?" "I'm proposing we start over. You and me as partners. I'll handle the business development and investment side. You handle the technical architecture. We split equity 50-50, and we build something that actually reflects who does what." "What about Victoria?" "I'll offer to buy out her share of Hartwell Solutions for pennies on the dollar. She can take it or watch the company she claims to have built collapse completely. Either way, she loses." I thought about Victoria in her penthouse, surrounded by failing systems and broken promises, finally understanding exactly what she'd lost. "When do we start?" 3 months later, Morrison Sutton Technologies launched with 8 of Hartwell Solutions' former clients, the ones who'd been willing to take a chance on the people who actually understood their technical infrastructure. I rebuilt everything from scratch, better this time, with proper documentation and knowledge transfer protocols. Richard handled the business side with the same charm and confidence Victoria had, but with one crucial difference. He never once dismissed my technical contributions as just programming. Victoria tried to sue us for stealing clients. The lawsuit went nowhere. The clients had left because they couldn't get adequate technical support from Hartwell Solutions. We'd simply offered them a better alternative. She tried to sue me personally for breach of contract. That went nowhere too. I hadn't broken any agreements. I'd simply stopped working for a company that treated me like disposable help. 6 months after I walked out of that penthouse, I read in TechCrunch that Hartwell Solutions had filed for bankruptcy. Victoria had tried to salvage something, had burned through her reserves paying contractors and fighting legal battles, but without the technical foundation, the company had nothing to stand on. The article mentioned that the company's former technical architect had launched a successful competing firm. My phone rang that evening, Victoria's number. I'd unblocked it weeks ago, curious if she'd ever call again. "Hello, Victoria." Silence for a long moment. Then, "I should have listened to you." "Yes," I agreed. "You should have." I was so focused on being the CEO, on building something impressive, I forgot that businesses need more than just vision. They need people who can actually build the vision. "They do," I said. More silence. "Are you happy, Ethan? With your revenge?" "This wasn't revenge," I said honestly. "Revenge would have been sabotaging your systems or stealing your clients while you were vulnerable. This was consequence. You treated me like I was worthless, like my contribution didn't matter. So I let you try to run the company without those contributions. That's not revenge. That's just reality." "I lost everything." "So did I, Victoria. The difference is I lost a marriage built on lies. You lost a company built on someone else's work." I heard her breath catch, maybe a sob, maybe just frustration. "I'm sorry, Ethan. For what it's worth, I'm genuinely sorry." "I believe you," I said. "But sorry doesn't change what happened. It just means you finally understand why it happened." I hung up and looked around my new office. Morrison Sutton Technologies occupied the same floor where Hartwell Solutions had started 5 years ago, before the penthouse and the success and the lies. Full circle, but better this time. Built on partnership and respect instead of dismissal and ego. Richard walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Clients are happy. Infrastructure is solid. We're profitable in under 6 months. Not bad for a just back-end support." I laughed. "Not bad at all. Think Victoria learned anything from this?" I thought about that question, about my ex-wife sitting in the ruins of her company, finally understanding exactly what she'd lost. "Maybe," I said. "But that's not my concern anymore. She's got her own consequences to live with." Today, Morrison Sutton Technologies is worth $30 million and growing. We employ 23 people, including 4 developers who I treat like the essential foundation they are. Richard and I split decisions 50-50, and neither of us makes a move without consulting the other. And Victoria? Last I heard, she was working as a business development consultant for a mid-sized firm in Portland. Not failing, not destroyed, just no longer the CEO of her own empire. Sometimes I think about what might have happened if she'd just valued my contribution, if she'd treated me like a partner instead of an employee. We might still be married. Hartwell Solutions might still be thriving. But then I remember that night, standing in our bedroom packing a backpack, hearing her say, "That's all you are," with such absolute certainty. And I realize some relationships aren't worth saving. Some partnerships are better ended than endured. The technical infrastructure I built brought down Victoria's company not through sabotage or revenge, but simply by revealing the truth. Without the foundation she'd dismissed as just programming, her business acumen and connections meant nothing. If there's a lesson in all this, it's simple. Never dismiss the people who build the foundation of your success. Whether it's code, construction, logistics, or any other behind-the-scenes work, those contributions aren't just support. They're essential. And the moment you forget that, you risk losing everything built on that foundation. If this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment about a time you were undervalued at work or in a relationship. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And remember that your worth isn't determined by whether other people recognize it. It's determined by what you know you bring to the table. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.